Good evening, everyone. My name is Mitch Cohen, and I chair the wonderful group known as the Northborough Select Board. I will call our meeting to order at Thursday, September 19th, 2024 at 7:01 p.m. We are being recorded. We've got a couple of interviews tonight and some other discussions similar to what we did at our first set of interviews on Monday night. We're going to have a quick discussion about recording and things like that and procedural, and then I will bring in our first candidate. So at our last meeting, we had made the decision to not live stream the interviews out of concern that candidates from tonight might see the prior interviews for. Everyone will get to see them. They were recorded. They will be broadcast and put on YouTube and everything else in time for the weekend. So the question is, do we want to live stream tonight's interviews or do we want to not live stream? We have two candidates tonight. You know, in theory, one could watch before the other. Or we could do the same thing last time and just sometime after tonight's meeting, put them all up at the same time.
I mean, I think for continuity, just withhold the live stream, let the two candidates interview, and then we can release them all together.
I kind of feel most comfortable with that.
Good.
I like that idea.
Sure. Fine with me?
Yep, that's fine
All
with
right,
me.
When will they be? When will they be posted?
I'll prompt Owen if he happens to know. Owen, do you happen to know how quick? Yeah, I didn't think you would, but I figured I'd ask. As soon as reasonably possible.
Okay.
But none of us have anything to do with that. So
I think the term is administratively feasible.
there we go.
Whoa, throw some big words.
And so before we'll continue on for another moment. So tonight are our last two interviews. Do we want to have a deliberation afterwards? And we could do a couple of different things. I think we should at least set some expectation beforehand. We could, in theory, we could choose one person. It's on the agenda for Monday to make that decision. So I'm not anticipating that we will. It might be helpful to Tim because he would like to bring in potentially a couple of candidates in to meet staff. Perhaps as soon as tomorrow, that if we had our eye on a couple of people or felt that there were a couple of people that might not be worthwhile for staff to meet, we could kind of talk about that at the end. So I wanted to bring that up there now. We don't have to decide what we're doing right now, but I wanted to put that bug in everyone's ear that we may want to have a discussion at the end. There is an executive session on this agenda for actual negotiations. I'm not anticipating we'll use that because we have said that we want candidates to meet staff before we make a final decision like that. So,
Okay.
that's all. So you can think about it while we're talking to everybody else. Anybody else have any?
Well,
Okay.
one thing to consider as we're thinking about this is that the public would probably like to see our deliberations in real time.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a practical way of sort of turning the live stream back on and how that works and how anybody will even know to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I certainly want the feedback from the public before we make hard and fast decisions, but it may be a matter of if we can divide the pool of 4 into 2, maybe it would be helpful for Tim to know that so we can bring candidates in. If we're not ready to do that after these interviews tonight, we don't have to do it.
okay.
Well, we could start a discussion.
We can start and have some discussion, yeah. But all pending feedback from the public, from watching the interviews, and staff from both watching interviews and hopefully meeting the candidates in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I think it'd be good maybe to have a little discussion and then think about what's going on over the weekend and then Monday night.
Sounds good. Are we ready to bring the candidate in or any other questions? All right. If you could unpress the magic button. door and leave that one open. Well, welcome to Northborough. Appreciate you joining us tonight. You're probably familiar with this general process. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions, but we'll also give you a couple of opportunities to talk to us about other things that are on your mind. I will start by saying welcome, and if we've all read your application documents, if you could tell us a little something about yourself that might not be obvious, and this is also an opportunity to tell us anything that you think we should know.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you all so much for the opportunity. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you to Tim.
Tim will be joining us, but he's not quite here yet.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this opportunity. I love doing this work, and I would love to do this work in the town of Northborough. I did want to say congratulations to my fellow candidates. We have a great profession. We have a great group of professionals who are supportive of each other. We respect each other, these are the best of the best people. So I wish them all luck. In fact, Angie, Lopes, Ellison, and I were both finalists in Ludlow 2.5 years ago. So I know Angie quite well. She's great. So I will touch on a little bit of what's in my resume. I've been in Ludlow for the past 2.5 years. It's kind of been a whirlwind couple of years. Ludlow is a town that really hadn't been sort of advanced for 20 years or so, and there was a lot of sort of breaking expectations and habits. It's been great. It's been very challenging, but it's been great. I suspect Northborough is probably a little bit different town. I know Tim does a great job, and I know you guys have a history of quality management. So I think the experience would likely be a little bit different. Before Ludlow, I worked for the town of Agawam for 7 years. I was the director of planning and development. Really with a focus on economic development. I know there's an effort to revitalize the downtown, which is fabulous. That's kind of right up my alley, and I watched a couple of the videos, and it's a really exciting project. And then actually the last 3 years of my time at Agawam, I was also on the select board in Longmeadow. So I've been sitting right in your chair as well, which really helped me give me some perspective on sort of what board members are looking for. I'm also an attorney licensed in New York and Massachusetts, obviously not practicing, but I think that's noteworthy. In terms of sort of philosophies, I have these pillars of professionalism that I always go back to. So our days can get really hectic and stressful, and I always come back to these 3 pillars, and that is service, communication, and gratitude. I love helping people. I'm just so happy that I was able to find this profession. Every single day we can help individuals. In fact, yesterday we had an elderly woman call the office, and nobody had picked up her trash, and this was just the sweetest voice I've ever heard in my life. And we were able to contact our trash provider and get her trash picked up hopefully today. But that's what I really love to do. Communication is huge for me. Communication, any relationship that falls apart, typically it's because of a lack of communication. I'm available 24/7. I unfortunately or fortunately, but I'm always available to all of you. Whenever you need to speak with me. I've also sort of put together a communication plan or program that I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. But also my last pillar is gratitude. My family has endured a lot of adversity in our lives. I'm so grateful every single day. I'm so grateful to be sitting here with all of you. It's a blessing, and I try to instill that in me every day, and certainly in staff. It's, you know, it's a magic pill. You know, once you have gratitude, sort of in these times of adversity, I certainly, you know, became resentful and sort of self-loathing, but really gratitude and public service really brought me back to sort of where I am now. In terms of my management style, I'm not a micromanager. You know, my theory is we either have or hire great people, train them, support them, get out of their way. If they need anything from, you know, from me or from us, you know, I think we support them, but I really like to give people space to be who they are. Going back to the communication that I was talking about, so what we do is every single week, like for example, tomorrow I'll send out a weekly summary to all staff because we do so many things every single day, and there's really no way to kind of keep up with it and know when, you know, what to communicate and when. So I make sure every single week all staff knows, both in our building and other buildings, DPW, police, fire, that what happened during that week. And oftentimes it'll trigger, you know, a response or some communication that, you know, oh, you know, thanks for letting me know, or because, you know, these things are important. And, you know, as I said, the pace just gets really fast. So I can't always remember to communicate everything at that time. We also do monthly functional group meetings, public safety, our finance team. I'm always meeting with, we also have an assistant town administrator who's also our HR director. I meet with her quite a bit. You know, that's just to keep lines of communication open. And so, you know, in terms of, you know, whether that's, I don't know what Tim's been doing here, but, you know, I wouldn't want to necessarily change things up right away in terms of, you know, how he meets with his people. We also have quarterly department head meetings, quarterly staff meetings without the department heads. We're actually doing a training. We have Munis. I don't know if you guys have Munis. Yep. So we just did an upgrade for Munis, and, you know, we did the upgrade. We went to the cloud, and we also have 2 new financial people. So we're actually hired a consultant to come in and offer training for staff at that staff meeting. Every 6 months we have employee wellness days. We actually had a wellness day on Wednesday, which was really well received. We brought in, we use Maya. So a rep from Maya came in and sort of gave an overview of all the EAP programs that are available through Maya. We have a lot of new people, so I think that was appreciated. We also brought in a life coach. He was great. His name's Jerry Posner. Talked for 2 hours about gratitude. He talked about managing change. You know, it was a lot of sort of, you know, it was really a lot of emotional intelligence stuff, but he was great. We played bingo. We brought in therapy dogs. So I think the staff really had a good day. And just a quick note, I mean, as I said previously, initially there was a lot of upheaval because, you know, I really want our town or any town to operate efficiently. So obviously there were a lot of people with embedded sort of expectations and I would say senses of entitlement that we had to break. So there was a lot of sort of battles to be fought initially. So we've gotten through that. Now I really want to show them that I care about them. You know that, and it's funny because now, you know, once we've sort of settled, and it really showed them that I care about them. You know, the dynamic in town hall has really changed. They're really responding to me, you know, a little bit more, and it's just the environment. It's a lot better. Just a couple more. I do a tea with a TA every month at the senior center. I think that's probably pretty common. Every single month, I get some communication with a senior. That's just that I hold with me. And we also have a monthly newsletter in the works, and we also we're also doing a marketing campaign through JGPR. So, lastly, as I said, I love being a town manager. I'm a part of the MMA. I'm on the MMA Municipal and Regional Policy Administration, the Program Committee, the Form of Government Committee. I love doing that kind of work, as I said. I'm also on the Attorney General's Open Meeting Law Advisory Committee. I'm the lone representative from MMA who's on that committee. Last but not least, I have to mention my wife and I just celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary. At some point, she'll probably see this. We have my son's turning 16 on Saturday. God help us. He's obsessed with basketball. My daughter's 12. She's obsessed with socializing. We have 2 dogs, a Portuguese water dog and a Labradoodle, 2-in-1. So I went a little bit long. I apologize for that, but I thought it was important at least get the family.
That's
in
right.
there.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction to you. What we failed to do beforehand is decide what direction we want to go. We went this way before.
That way's great.
Okay. Do you want to start with you? Do you want to skip over you? Start
I'll
with.
start.
Okay. You sure? Okay.
So, Mark,
Yes.
you mentioned that it's very important to keep lines of communication open. So how would you engage various town departments and external stakeholders to ensure collaborative and efficient operations? Sometimes the communication can be good, but it's getting to that consensus and everybody feeling good about it.
Sure, absolutely. Again, kind of going back to what we do in Ludlow, I try to communicate every week with everybody. Every month we have functional meetings, but I'm always communicating with all departments because there's so many things that go on, financial issues. I'm always talking to our planner. I meet with our planner, once a month to get updates. Like we have department head meetings, we have staff meetings. I think my staff is a little sick of communicating, frankly. So I'm still trying to figure out, what that sweet spot is in terms of, having the lines of communication open, but not totally, kind of turning them off from the communication. In terms of stakeholders, that was one thing I wrote down here is stakeholders are so important. One of my questions, is going to be, who are the stakeholders in town? I know in Ludlow, we have certain groups that work really well and closely with the town. So certainly, within the first 90 days, I would do a sort of a listening tour, certainly with staff and department heads, but also stakeholders. I don't know if those stakeholders are quite yet, but I'd ask you to help me identify them, meet with them, and see how they want to be communicated with. We can certainly put together, again, like I do my weekly summary. I'm happy to share any information that's available or that they want to see.
Mm-hmm. Do you kind of see yourself as the mediator, as the facilitator in these discussions of, the various groups with identifying their interests? Do you see yourself as the facilitator to bring everyone's interest?
Absolutely,
to the-
absolutely. So I'm envisioning that my role, if I were chosen, would be a little bit different than what I've been doing in Ludlow. So Ludlow, I kind of been more in the trenches, just to try to move the town forward and update us in terms of technology and programming and getting us out there. It seems like there's a phenomenal staff here, so I do see myself as being sort of as you said, a mediator or somebody who can kind of broker information. So yeah, like I said, I think it's going to be, there would be a little bit of a different dynamic, but I'm really excited about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa.
Okay, so I'm going to go with some of our standard questions under leadership and management. So how have you managed the appointment and removal of a department head in your previous role, and what approach would you take in Northborough?
Well, we had to separate basically our entire IT department early on in Ludlow, and that was because we had a ransomware attack back in 2021. There was pretty much no security. There was no password security. Our firewalls were from like 2001. And so after that happened, there was absolutely no remedy to it. We didn't increase our security at all. There was no multi-factor authentication. There was no security. So we hired an outside firm to do an audit, kind of show what where the deficiencies were in our IT, and we just communicated. I'm a very direct communicator, both good and bad. I think it's the only way to do it. So in terms of that situation, we brought them in one by one, showed them, what we found, and what we really didn't have any choice at that point. So, I'm certainly I'm not opposed to holding people accountable. That's what we've been doing in Ludlow for 2.5 years. I think you have to be, again, I'm very serious about service. I'm very serious about servicing residents. I'm extremely serious about making sure that taxpayer dollars are spent efficiently. So most department heads are on board with that. And when they're not, we have to have hard conversations. It's my least favorite part of the job, I'm not going to lie. But it's one of those things where I feel so strongly about it that, sometimes we have to make those decisions or have those conversations, even though they are very difficult.
Okay, so I'm asked, so the removal of a department head, you have had to do that?
Yes.
And when prior to, you've been there for 2.5 years. So when you first got there, what you'd said was they really needed to get corralled and everything needed to go in order, that it hadn't been in quite a while?
Yeah, there was a lot in every department that, save for a couple, that it was a little head spinning, again, because I had experience in Longmeadow, I had experience in Agawam, so I kind of knew generally what best practices were, and we really weren't doing any of them. Mm-hmm. Those conversations kind of evolved. Some of them were more urgent, like IT and obvious. It's also it was completely decentralized, so the department heads kind of had their own fiefdoms, and there was a lot of elected boards, and the town administrator was just not revered or respected as the central administrative figure. So it was kind of there was a kind of taking that back. And these were conversations that occurred. Some department heads left because they didn't want to be part of kind of what we were a part of, and that's going to happen not necessarily with this town if I'm selected, but certainly with Ludlow again, because everything was so entrenched. But over time we have again continued to have difficult conversations, and we have an amazing team now. Again, we've turned over some people, mostly because they just left or retired, and they didn't want to be part of sort of what we were a part of. So we have an amazing team now, and a couple of the department heads that were sort of my biggest sort of adversaries vocally were probably my two closest department heads at this point.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it certainly sounds like you've done a lot of work at Ludlow and doing a lot of changes and working through that. So why leave Ludlow and come to Northborough?
It's a great opportunity. The town's been managed really well. I sort of drew a circle around Longmeadow, sort of an hour commute circle, and if any jobs came up that were enticing, I decided that I was going to apply for them. Again, I am not interested in another reclamation project. It's taken a lot out of me and my family for the past 2.5 years. Not to say that we wouldn't hold people accountable and do what we needed to do, but Northborough is a great town. I actually went to college with a gentleman from Northborough. I lost track. I think he's in Rutland now, and actually we played Juniper Hill shortly after we graduated. I kind of hadn't put those two things together, so I was relatively familiar with Northborough. Again, it's a little bit stronger administrator than we have in Ludlow, but it's a good job. This is a good job in terms of looking around at other towns and other openings.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So Northborough, I think like many of the other municipalities in Massachusetts, has a need to save money and to remain affordable for our taxpayers, and we have a lot of projects that we want to do that are going to cost money. We've got some big work coming up ahead of us. Can you give me an example of an experience in the past where you had to make a decision on a crucial project just because it wasn't fiscally going to work with the needs of the taxpayers overall?
So you're asking a project or a program that would have been beneficial, but it just didn't make sense. I don't know that no project's coming to mind, and it's really because there's so much grant money out there.
Yep.
So, we've been really lucky, both in Agawam and Ludlow, with grant money. We've gotten a ton of money through MassWorks, our MVP program, CDBG, I wrote them down here, Community Compact. So we really, maximized every dollar that's available. I think every project is possible in terms of finances and cost if you work at it. It's really, in Ludlow, we really are prioritizing our downtown revitalization. We have a mills project. Wind Development is refurbished 2 mills and developed 170 affordable units. It's reinvigorating our downtown. So now we're sort of looking at beautifying our main, kind of our main street is called East Street. And we actually had, it's funny because we had, when we were looking at that project, I looked online for other examples and I saw Weston and Sampson had done Millbury. And I didn't realize that Lori Connors was the planner in Millbury. So we actually hired Weston and Sampson to do our conceptual plan. They did an amazing job. So now we're sort of set up for success. We can go and we will go for additional grant funding. I'm an optimist, so I think things are possible until they're absolutely not. Nothing's coming to my brain that there was a project or a program that we couldn't do.
I thank you for the answer. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. So, as you correctly guessed, if you were to be hired as the town administrator, you won't find a staff in the same situation that it sounded like you started with in Ludlow. We've got a great group of people here, but you would still need to evaluate, assess the organization as a whole, both structurally and individually. I'm curious how you'd go about doing that and how you would report your findings back to the select board.
Sure, right. And I think I alluded this a little bit. So I would do a 90-day listening tour. Essentially meet with all the department heads, see where they are, see what they need, see where they think the department is going. I would also like to meet with staff. I really don't want to necessarily undermine the department heads. That can be a little tricky. I would certainly meet with all of you to see what your priorities are and where you think the town needs to go, or what priorities we should be prioritizing. Those stakeholders I had mentioned, I would love to meet with the stakeholders and just get a well-rounded view of Northborough, really educating myself. And then after those 90 days, I'd put together a report, come in front of you and tell you what I found and what I see, and you can let me know what's accurate and what amendments or what suggestions you had.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mark, you mentioned that you don't consider yourself a micromanager, but how would you handle a situation where a department or employee under your control is underperforming?
Communicate. So if it was a sort of there's 2 admins in our office. They're both outstanding, but if I'm very close with them, so if there was an issue, I would just tell them. We have that kind of relationship. In terms of department heads, again, we would just sit down and have a conversation about it. Some of those conversations would be easier than others. Like I said, I'm a direct communicator. I've shared my vision of what I think the town needs to be moving forward. Certainly communication, absolutely prioritizing residents, and really we've been trying to leverage technology to make our operations more efficient. But again, I have no problems communicating directly with people. Obviously respectfully and with kindness. But we are responsible. I know this is kind of a cliche and people say that, but we work for residents. Residents pay taxes, and we work for them. We work for you, right? And I take that very seriously. So, and that's always my message to department heads. Most department heads are in it for the same reason. When some aren't, we have to communicate that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Can you describe your experience with preparing and submitting the annual budgets and capital outlay programs? And how would you approach this task in Northborough?
That is a good question. So shortly after, so we lost our town accountant who kind of doubled informally as our finance director back in January of '23. So, and there's very little municipal financial talent out there. We went without a town accountant for quite some time. We hired Clifton Larson and Allen out of Boston. They've been outstanding, but they're very expensive. So I've put together the budget the past 3 years. It's been a great experience. What I did was I went through every single line item, literally every single line item in our budget. I compared it to the past 3 years to sort of see what the actual expenditures were. I made adjustments either up or down, typically down. And communicated that with the departments. I met with myself and our assistant town administrator, met with all the departments. And then we do a presentation to both the Board of Selectmen and the school committee. Then we do a full presentation to the board, and then we present it at town meeting. I know previously John Cordero had done an outstanding job with the budget and finances, and Tim. I know Tim did the financial summit, which is amazing. So in fact, I have the presentation from last town meeting. I don't really think I need to change anything. Without knowing really, the ins and the outs, but from what I see on the outside, there's really not much to change, just to make sure I don't mess it up.
Okay, and what was your total amount for the 2 years of going to town meeting? What was your total
Our budget?
budget that?
Our budgets are very similar. So this year, we are 84 million. That's our general fund. I think all in, we're like 91. 87 or 91, and I think Northborough is right around there, 81 or so, which I thought was interesting. A lot of those 21,000 people, obviously Northborough's a little bit smaller than that, but yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, Mark, describe a time where you had to address a concern or a question from the public sort of on the spot at town meeting or in a select board meeting, and how did that go?
Town meeting I love town meeting for that very reason, because the questions it's something else. So, yeah, we have town meeting on October 7th, which I think is the same day you guys have yours. I know that we're going to have questions because we actually have a new charter on. There's a proposal to change our form of government to a council manager. We're going to get a ton of questions about that. We also have a $5 million bond down for a park, sort of our main park that's fallen into disrepair. I'm an open book. I try to base everything that I say on facts. I have nothing to hide from anybody. I believe strongly in transparency. And the difficult part is oftentimes people at town meeting will ask questions that are difficult to answer because they don't fully understand the sort of the factual basis for the question. And this stuff is really complicated. For example, we did a diff for our Main Street project, East Street, last year, and we had people asking questions about the diff. I don't know if you guys know anything about a diff, but it is extremely complicated. District improvement financing, it's a way to capture taxpayer dollars for infrastructure and it's very difficult. I did the best I could, but I don't know if it landed. But to your point, again, I'm an open book. Anybody wants to see what we're doing at any time, I'm happy to share. I think it's great to share with the public because it educates them on what we're doing. There's so much misinformation and disinformation that just spreads because a neighbor thinks they know 3/4 of what's going on, and people respect that voice, and that kind of message gets skewed. So I love, again, communicating with the public and educating them as much as possible because it makes our lives easier.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Laura?
Thank you. In your view, what are the most important qualities of a successful town administrator, and how do you embody those qualities?
Positivity, consistency, empathy, communication. When I've had jobs where you walk in the door and you feel the negativity of the boss. It kind of pervades the environment. I never want to be that person. Going back to my gratitude, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity. I'm so grateful to get up every morning. We're also so very lucky. So I try to bring that every day. Every day I walk in, I see two admins. I give them a huge smile, a huge good morning. I'm always sort of trying to be positive and smiling, and just bringing positivity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you stay educated, both in terms of networking and meeting other people and seeing how other people solve problems, and educating yourself, such as, I don't know if you're a member of ICMA or if you've had procurement training or any of those things. Yeah,
of course. I'm a member of MMA. I'm on the committee that plans the meetings, so I couldn't go to yesterday's boot camp because we had our employee wellness day, but I try to go to every single meeting. I'm also on two other committees, so I have a pretty good network of colleagues that they're available whenever sort of a nuanced issue comes up. We also, and I'm proud of this, I put together a network of administrators in Western Mass. Sort of the towns that are not mayors have managers and administrators. So we do a monthly lunch. It's mostly therapy. So we have a lunch, and again, amazing group of people. We share things with each other, and we're also on a listserv together. So things come up, and I have a question, I'll shoot it out, and vice versa. So there's absolutely no shortage of networking or accessibility to colleagues.
Are you in ICMA?
Yep.
Okay. And what was the other one? The procurement training, the MCCPO. We've gone through that.
I am certified.
Great.
I have to. In fact, I'm registered for a class that starts in September for my renewal designation.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
So in Agawam, you were Director of Planning and Community Development.
Correct.
And you have probably read a little bit that Northborough has some big projects ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you guide us through that? Be sensitive to tax impact, be sensitive to people who want it done tomorrow.
Yeah. No, it's because I know the fire station is on for October, right, for the bond. I read about the is White Cliffs down here?
Yes, yes.
So I read about White Cliffs. That's an expensive project. Every town has the same issues. We have the same thing in Ludlow. It's really by taking the temperature of the town, taking the temperature of the board, and then sort of leading the charge. You can't do everything at once, and it takes a long time because of that. Northborough, to its advantage, has a nice commercial tax base. So I think you're 75% residential, 25% commercial, industrial, personal. We're more like 81-19. So that's certainly a luxury to help keep taxes down. And it might create a little bit of space for a debt exclusion or more projects, but you can't do it all at once. I feel like the fire station, that's going to be a shock to some people when they get their tax bills. But those projects they're necessary, and I feel like with those projects, the public can see how their tax dollars are getting invested. It's projects like infrastructure that's super expensive that nobody really sees. It's not really so those are sort of tougher sells. In Ludlow, it was before I got there, but Ludlow invested in a new senior center. It's amazing. They did an amazing job. We have $2 lunches. We get 200 people a day. the place is buzzing, you know, but people know that their taxes went up because of it, but they can see it. You know, and that makes a major difference. So there's a lot of different calculations that go into what projects to prioritize, and you know, unfortunately, I'm not a very patient person. You know, I like to get a lot of things done quickly, but that's just not how it works.
Thank you.
Lisa?
So you live in Ludlow.
I live in Long Meadow.
Oh, Long Meadow,
Yep.
correct. And it's an hour from there to here?
Yep.
So are you planning to relocate, or you think an hour commute is going to be okay
I'll
for
commute.
you? Or?
Yeah, no, it's not bad at all. I came out Saturday and Sunday. I wanted to see, Saturday I came out mid-afternoon, there was a little bit of traffic, took me about an hour and 15. I came out Sunday morning, took me an hour flat. It's really, you know, I listen to podcasts, I listen to books on tape. I enjoy that sort of solitude. I'm an introvert. You know, things like this I have to ramp up for. So, you know, that time, I'd say, you know, I actually look forward to that time. Right now, my commute's 25 minutes, so the way it breaks up is it's about 20 or 25 minutes to Ludlow, about another, you know, 20, 25 minutes to the exit, another 20 minutes off the exit. So, you know, that's not a concern for me.
So you do it as a regular drive, it's over an hour one way?
Yeah.
And that's, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I used to live in Boston. I lived probably 5 miles from my job, and it took me 45 minutes. So it's all relative.
Yeah, it's true.
My wife travels 45 minutes for her job, you know.
Okay.
Do have some late meetings.
Yes, we do.
Oh, yeah, no, my family's, I mean, I've been doing this for more than 10 years, so, you know, we have planning board meetings every Thursday, so it's just part of the gig,
Okay.
yeah.
Earlier, you had mentioned, you know, when you came into Ludlow, you know, trying to do some positive changes, there was a lot of upheaval. How did you manage the stress of the staff, and then how did you manage your own stress, sort of trying to work through that?
A lot of box breathing. It was stressful. There's no question about it. And you know, again, we met. We had kept the lines of communication open. We met monthly. When it's funny because when we had those meetings, I would sit. You know, we had a long table. I would sit here, and everybody would sit back there. You know, it's like, you know, because you know, I was the big bad wolf at that point. And you know, that was part of the gig. I didn't like that part of it, but it had to get done. You know, now we have great conversations, and we're all much closer. So, you know, really, I wish I used to play basketball, you know, a couple nights a week before COVID hit. I just don't have time for it anymore. And I listen to podcasts and books on tape to sort of center myself.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned that you had some economic development in your prior role. Can you talk to me about what you enjoyed most about that and some of the successes that you saw related to it?
It's optimism. You know, it's like economic development is you know what the future can be, and you know, I just when I see fresh things like we were big on signs and facades. Signs and facades can really, you know, it's such a small investment, but it can really make an area pop. I like to feel fresh. I like areas to feel fresh and new and invigorated. I just think it adds to people's quality of life. We had some big projects come through Agawam because there's Route 57 is a major artery in Agawam, and there was like a 210 acre parcel that really we needed MassDOT help to put in a ramp, but we had a FedEx warehouse that came in, and they were coming in from North Carolina. That was amazing. Just to sort of, you know, go through the machinations and think about, you know, what impact that could have on the town. And, you know, COVID hit, and then, you know, things kind of fizzled out. But I love economic development. You know, I'm just sort of drawn to it. So in terms of the Main Street project, I will certainly be innately drawn to that. I don't know. It's just really optimistic to me.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm going to follow up with a related question also about economic development. Northborough currently has no economic development committee nor a staff person full-time assigned to that. Do you think, obviously you don't know enough about Northborough to say yes or no on that, but how would you evaluate whether either or both of those would be helpful to help Northborough move along, and how would you handle that?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I'm happy to be, a point person or, be the economic development person. It's just, I have deep experience in that. In Ludlow, our town planner really didn't do too much economic development, so I kind of thrust it on him. So we're kind of doing it together. But if we had a committee, that'd be fantastic. The citizenry isn't quite as engaged, I think, probably as Northborough is. So yeah, I mean, I would love to be part of that. Again, I'm happy to be sort of the quasi-economic development person or director, meet with and attend economic development committee meetings. I'd love to do that.
Thank you.
I have a question on that topic too. So COVID changed the way we shop and, do our daily errands. Some people don't even have to go out of their house. So how do you think economic development will have to change as a result of all those changes that COVID brought about? And, it wasn't just COVID. It was Amazon and FedEx and the new instant shopping.
Yeah, we buy our groceries online. When we use not DoorDash. I'm totally blank. Instacart. My wife and I are both busy, so it's certainly a convenience. It's definitely a new economy. In terms of economic development, I'm big on placemaking. Thinking about the downtown, you really want people to feel like they've come to a place. You can do that through signage and wayfinding, which can be branded. Certainly, tree plantings. There's so many different ways to make you feel like you've entered a place. We're working on that in Ludlow. We got all new town signs, and we're working on a marketing campaign, and for me it's placemaking. Absolutely, that's sort of the ground level, but also things like, I think the old town hall. I think probably housing is the lowest hanging fruit for that. We actually have 2 vacant buildings in Ludlow, former school buildings, and we just got $1 million earmark in the housing bond bill to remediate, do pre-development, remove asbestos, do wiring, do new windows. That's where the money is in terms of, going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but creating adaptive reuses for vacated buildings. Or an incubator space would be great. In my town, they refurbished an old mansion, and it's just basically small business solar practitioners who have office space who share it, and it's been wildly popular. I think that's really where it's going, it's again. I feel like with the downtown area, if there's a way to increase the housing units down there. Now you have a captive audience, and if you've been able to create sort of a sense that you've arrived at a place, that's the start of something good. It takes time, and it's really layered.
So just a follow-up, what do you think the responsibility of town government is to small business to help them succeed?
It's such a good question. It's a great question. It's hard. It's hard. So I go to Rotary meetings. I'm very friendly with our chamber. We communicate. They do a newsletter, and we'll put some stuff in if we have something that might be notable to the community, small business community. But in my 10 years, it's really hard to find. What's the best way to help, other than keep taxes down, obviously. But I know there are sign and facade programs available through the state, but I think it needs to be it needs to be within a district. So I don't really have a good answer for that one. It's a hard one.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned sign and facade program a few times. Give me an example of what you think should be on the signs, and what what are you picturing as opposed to just, talking about them? How about giving
Sure.
me some examples of what your signage and wayfaring is supposed to do by bringing people?
So many signs, just, of existing businesses they're just older. So instead of having a flat sign on a facade, if it sticks out and it's more sort of vibrant, colorful, sort of more contemporary looking, people are going to be attracted to that business. Same thing with facades. New windows or replacing brick facades if there's brick facades. It's really an aesthetic thing. And Agawam had a lot of great businesses, very loyal clientele. They were very profitable, but they didn't do much for other businesses coming in next to them because it felt tired. And I know there's other towns that have done it. I can't remember which one it was, but I have an example of a town that did a sign and facade program, and it was really well received. Again, it shows an investment in the business community. It shows an investment in the town, and you're drawn to it. You're drawn to your eyes are drawn to it. You're like, it's like the shiny thing. If you have two things that look exactly the same, and one's shiny and it's 10 times more than the other one, you're probably going to want to buy this one because it's nicer, for lack of a better way to put it. So, yeah.
Like most towns, right, most or a good sizable portion of the budget is going to the schools.
Yep.
So can you describe how you've get along with, work with school committee, the schools there in Ludlow?
Yeah, we get along great. So before I started, there was really no intercommunication. So what we do is we do a quarterly joint meeting with the select board, the board of selectmen, and the school committee. We meet monthly. Myself and the town accountant meet monthly with the school superintendent and school business manager, and this is and we also meet monthly with the chairs of all FinCom, the school committee, and the board of selectmen, just to make sure that everybody is communicating with each other as much as possible. Sometimes we don't have to do the meetings with just the superintendent and the school business manager because we've already covered it with the meeting, monthly meeting of the chairs. But yeah, there's a divide in Ludlow between the schools and the board of selectmen. Our schools get 47% of the budget. I know that's probably on the low end. I think Northborough is close to 60, maybe 55, 56. So there's a lot of people in town who don't think that the town, via the board of selectmen, fund the schools enough. I'm a big education guy. I think we should fund schools. So that's sort of a delicate balance. But again, even if you have disagreements, you have to come together and talk about it. Because otherwise, people get on the forums and this person heard from this person. Some of our board members actually get on and engage with them, which is not always the best practice. So we've tried to bring everybody together and communicate as much as possible. I don't know how much difference it's going to make in terms of sort of increasing the investment in the schools from the town side, because we really have a revenue problem in Ludlow, but it doesn't concern you. Again, it comes back to communication.
Okay, and we'll have a fairly large school project coming up here in Northborough. While in Ludlow, have there been any school projects or maintenance or larger maintenance issues or anything that's come up that you've had to work through with school buildings or school properties?
Yeah, so we're just finishing out the MSBA process for an elementary school. It was mostly done when I started, but we've certainly been involved in that. We actually had so one of the facades of one of the walls of our high school is water got behind it, so it was pulling away, and obviously it was a safety hazard, so we had to obviously work with the school superintendent and their maintenance staff and find the money for it. Luckily we were able to We budgeted free cash for it. We budgeted $500,000. It came back at $165,000, which was awesome. But we also have a little bit of ARPA money left over that we could have used. So, yeah. In terms of sort of, this form of government, our form of government, it's tricky because, you meet twice a year to appropriate money. And if something happens in the interim, it can get tricky.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. Thank you.
Laura?
So when we were talking with the question about economic development, you had mentioned the FedEx distribution facility.
Yep.
Did that impact traffic in Ludlow at all? And
We didn't do it.
Okay.
So it died. But that was
okay.
that was certainly it was out of the way enough that it wouldn't have impacted traffic in the neighborhood. But to get to 91 in Springfield, people would have to come down 57, and there's a rotary to get on to 91, and that would have been a nightmare.
Yep.
If we had moved forward, that would have been the biggest pinch point, I think.
got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just a general question I'm curious about. So you're an attorney.
Yep.
I know you're not a practicing attorney because you do other things for a living. I'm curious how that helps you, how being an attorney helps you in your day-to-day job as being a town administrator. Some people may ask, hey, we don't need town council anymore because we've got an attorney as town administrator. Dispel that myth for us also.
No, it does help because not everything needs to go to town council. So I'm able to sort of interpret statutes and legislation whenever I can and when I feel comfortable that I'm interpreting correctly. I'm happy to do that. But I see language in a different way as an attorney. So I think it's definitely helped sort of mitigate our legal counsel bills. And I can also talk shop with them. So if an issue comes up, I have a great relationship with our town council. We can sort of talk as peers. I mean, he's a lot more. I never did municipal law, so I let him handle that. But I can sort of talk shop with him.
Thank you. So we've gone around the room a couple of times. Does anyone have any other burning questions we want to ask Mark before we turn the tables?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Thanks.
If everyone's good, I will give you the opportunity to ask us any questions you would like
Right.
to ask us, or let us know of anything that you hoped we would ask you.
Well, I do have a few questions for you. Hey, Tim. I do have a few questions for you, if you would indulge me. So this relationship is very important, so I guess my question, if each of you could answer, is how would you describe the role of the town administrator? I know what my role is in Ludlow and how sort of our board would define it. I'm interested as to sort of, how you see the role of the town administrator in Northborough.
Do we want to go around in the same order that we did? Julianne first?
So I guess my answer is short and sweet. The town administrator is the person who keeps the town running. Doesn't have to know every detail about every department and everything going on, but needs to know what's going on, and with the select board, oftentimes makes the best decisions about moving forward.
Yep, good.
Lisa?
Well, we've had some transitions. We've had one town administrator for 15 years, and a lot was done with one model. And we came in with a new board. Things changed. We've had a lot of change already in staff, and we're looking for innovation, something to bring us into the next level of, I suppose, the whole environment that we work in right now, where you are the middleman, so to speak, between the staff and the select board, and finances and wants. So there's a lot of balls that you have to juggle. I think that there's a great reliance upon your experience and past knowledge, how to find new methods of getting things done, not going back to the same old way it was done. And I think we've also had an issue where our municipal buildings were not maintained. and, trying to save money to look good on paper and not to look good environmentally. So I'm looking for somebody who's able to, probably put some attention back into that whole visual community feel. And I think we've done a lot. We've changed a lot of the vision that was in the past. But there's a lot of things that are all coming at the same time, whether it be the new fire station, a new school, a new town hall, a middle school. I mean, there's a lot of things that are waiting, police station, to come up. And they've been waiting. So I think we need somebody who's able to come up with some, again, innovation to get things done for us.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I would say, to kind of pick up on what both Lisa and Julianne said, the thing that immediately kind of comes to mind, right, is again that centerpiece, that cog that's keeping everything rolling and moving, being able to balance all the competing priorities of elected officials and department heads and the citizenry and handle all that incoming from all sides, but yet keeping the trains running. We don't have any trains in Northborough, but if we did, keeping them running on time. Well, we do have freight trains, but that's another
Can you get a train running in Northborough?
right. And then also, in relation to the board, making sure, that you're not necessarily, and I'm not saying that you would do this, but try to push the board to certain decisions or guide them to certain decisions, but making sure the board has all the information that they need to make the best educated decision that they can, and that they come to decision points, that sometimes boards can get lost in discussion or sideways, making sure that we're working together and you're helping, or a town administrator helping guide us to get to decision points and sort of having us make those decisions and then move on farther down the road. So that's what I would say. Laura?
So one thing that I've loved in the last year is the amount of transparency that we've been given between department heads, the staff, and all the inner workings of the town. I want to be able to continue to have that transparency and really working together. I think we've all got ideas for what we'd like to see in the town, and it's a matter of helping us work together as a team to help those goals go forward.
I mean, I'd say what I see as the role of a town administrator on the best days is more of as a coach than anything else, and help quality staff get inspired to do the right thing, because ideally quality staff know how to do most of those things on their own. Sometimes it's necessary to be a manager, whether it be for staff reasons or to deal with little surprises and get something done that wasn't planned to be done. And on some days it's a firefighter, of putting out big fires and dealing with the unexpected. I am sure Tim could tell you, and as well as Diane could say, some days you walk into the building expecting to do one thing, and you have 10 things to get done, and you get none of them done, but you get 4 other things done you didn't even know about it at 7 o'clock in the morning. Hopefully those days are few and far between, but they do happen. That's what I'd say generally, and helping us as the board and the town as a whole figure out and achieve long-term goals, which is easier said than done, but it's important to get done.
That sounds great.
Right. Hope that answered that question.
Yes.
Anything else for us?
Yeah. I just wanted to, kind of get a feel. I do have, I'm sorry, I know we're running long, but.
That's fine.
Sort of, what is your main priority, individually? Like, what's your, if in 3-5 years, what's the number one priority that you would like to see the town, make improvements or make progress with?
Want to do the same thing?
So my main priority in 3 to 5 years would be that we have a definite plan for all of the projects that need to be done. And everyone understands, or to the best of our ability, everyone's on board with, the fire station will be done at such and such a time. The school will follow and give us a time frame, how we're going to pay for it, how it's going to impact things. So that, we're not looking at 5 years out, we're looking at 20 years out. In addition to that, I would hope that our goals, our projects will you know, in 100 years, people will look back and say, they did that right. So that's mine. What's yours?
Well, to piggyback on that, because that's very, very well put, I'm also interested in the vision, in the feeling, as you were talking about, when you come in to be a destination. Not just, I'm gonna raise my children and, oh, time's up, I'm done. I think that's important, that we have to bring back a sense of community for everybody. To get more people back to doing things with involvement and energy, and looking forward to working together as a community to create just a wonderful sense of community, and, as you say, more new shiny objects. I'm over that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, the reason I moved to Northborough was because of the great schools and the great community, safe community, right? We were rated the safest, town for our size in Massachusetts. So, one of the goals is, how do we maintain and build on the level of services that we're providing the citizens in our schools, police, fire, and every other service the town provides, and managing those other competing priorities and making hard decisions to not price people out of Northborough. It's easy to give everybody everything, and then you hand them the bill, and then there's an issue. So that's obviously the biggest push and pull. So there's, to me, that's the biggest goal, is how do we build on the successes of the past so that people can be prosperous and happy here in Northborough? How do we maintain that? And I don't necessarily think I have all the solutions on that, or even everybody in this room, but how do we get there? How do we at least work towards it? That journey is sort of part of the goal that I would have.
Excellent, thank you.
And I think, similar to what everyone else has shared, the most sensitive spot for me is remaining affordable for people on fixed income, and figuring out, because it is very stressful when all the other expenses are going up. Just really looking at everything that we're spending money on, and, and like Mike said, we don't want people being taxed out, and just with these big projects ahead, trying to figure out if there's anything else we can do to offset tax bills.
Sure, absolutely.
I'll certainly agree with what everyone has said as important goals. I'll add one more, which is very important to me, which is downtown revitalization. I think that's something that the town has identified as a big, important goal, and honestly, we've struggled to figure out what that means and how to do it. I think we need some help from somebody, to guide us in that direction and make sure things get started and keep going and get finished. With the idea of thinking about the long-term vision. We have all the right people in place to do it. We just we need to get it done, and that leads to a lot of good things, like good economic development that can help keep the taxes down and manageable. It gets people even more excited about the community, and gets additional investors and everybody else to play a part.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity. I would love to be the town administrator in Northborough. Either way, it was great to meet you all, and I appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Mark, I apologize for being late.
No worries.
Sorry, pal. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Have a safe drive back.
Thank you so much.
Great meeting you. Thank you.
It's great to meet you. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you.
I'll give you one more. Be good.
So I think our updated
We're gonna listen
agenda
to on the
showed
way
the next
home.
interview for 8:15.
Is it what you're gonna listen
Is that-
Oh, okay.
Oh, it was 8:30. Okay.
There's no before, but it's such an interesting story.
Yeah.
So we should probably hold to that.
Yeah.
Thoughts? I don't even know if she's here, but it's only 8:10 now.
What did you want?
Sorry, I was.
I wanted to see
Oh,
whether we
she's
wanted to
here.
start the next interview right away if she's here.
Yeah, sure.
Or, give a couple minute break, or if we wanted to wait until if the time posted was 8:30, then maybe we
You should wait.
should wait, yeah.
If it didn't say it, it's not a public hearing.
Right, I know, I'd rather stick
If
by
people
that.
thought they would come at 8:15 and see her,
Yeah.
then
Yep.
you'll be
All
cross-eyed.
right, so why don't we recess until 8:30? It gives us 20 minutes to walk around and say hello?
Sure.
Everyone good with that? Okay, why don't we just turn that down if you want to, I don't know, point the camera at the flag or put up a sign or something like that. Thank you. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. We are here with our next candidate, Angie Lopes Ellison. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Angie Lopes Ellison.
Lopes.
Yes.
Okay, I've seen that second name pronounced different ways. So I would thank you. I apologize for doing it wrong, but
that's
thank you
quite
for
all right.
correcting me. You're probably familiar with the drill that we're going to go around the room and ask you some questions and things like that. And we will start by asking you to introduce yourself a little bit. We've all read your application documents. Might be a good time to let us know of anything that that might not be obvious from your application documents that you'd like us to know, or anything you think it's important for us to know before we get started.
Okay, certainly. Well, I'm Angie Lopes Ellison. I am presently in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. I guess I'll give you sort of a synopsis of my life. No. I started out in higher education. My undergrad degree and my graduate degree is in political science and American studies. And I actually spent about 17, 18 years in higher education. I retired my career there as Dean of Students at UMass Boston, who was also the Chief Student Affairs Officer. Excuse me, because I just realized that's evergreen, wintergreen.
We have a nice collection of candy around over there, whatever you would like.
In future, peppermint. Oh, sorry. Anyways, so I started, I worked in higher education, and a lot of the leadership roles that I took upon there, one too many accidents on the Mass Pike, and I had a very young family, ended up having me and my family think of, so I ended up being a stay-at-home mom. Being a career woman, I couldn't just allow myself to be a stay-at-home mom, so I started getting involved in the community. I sat on the elementary school committee. I did the regional school committee. I volunteered. I was president of the Friends of the Library, and it got me to eventually being a select board member. In that time period also, I guess as a precursor, I was going through a divorce, and I started looking for work in regards to what was happening in my life. I found a position in Blandford. It was a part-time position because I wasn't sure if I would actually like municipal government, so I figured I would, the part-time, I'd get used to it. I passionately call Blandford my full-time job with my part-time pay. Because you can't do this job on a part-time basis. There's no way. It involves too many hours and too many things, and you are vested in a community and do a lot for them. So as I was going through the divorce, I left Blandford to obviously get a full-time position that can support my livelihood, my family. And I ended up in Uxbridge, Massachusetts. One of the things, in regards to, now anybody can Google me and, everything comes up. I wish I was doing municipal government like 30 years ago, because then I could, some of the stuff that are in the papers aren't necessarily reflective of who and what I am. But in Uxbridge, one of the biggest issues that sort of had me leave is there was a individual who was in the town, and I discovered that he was embezzling funds. The select board liked him, so it became a very contentious issue. I hope you guys will know, I'm very ethical. I'm very much a rule follower, and I don't compromise my integrity. And so I pursued charges. I called the Attorney General's office. I got ethics involved as well, and we ended up having a meeting. Ultimately, to make a long story shorter, He ended up being indicted, because I also worked with the Division of Local Services as we moved forward in that aspect. He ended up getting indicted, not just our community, but multiple communities in pretty much the west of Massachusetts and some of where Uxbridge is, for embezzling well over $900,000. Obviously, because I went and fought the board, it was mutually agreed upon it might be better, that I moved elsewhere, and so I moved elsewhere. Because of that, I ended up going to North Adams. I worked for the mayor during COVID. Fun time. The mayor decided after his 2-year term he wasn't going to run for re-election. And so when the new mayor who won came into office, she wanted her own chief of staff. And so here I am again without a job. And then I ended up in Fairhaven. I love the community. I've done incredible work there. I think I've established a lot of structure, a lot of continuity, professionalized a lot of the issues. I started feeling like maybe my skill sets is coming into a community that needs to be improved, and I come in, I create systems, I do processes, professionalize it, and build and develop the community. Part of the reason why I'm leaving Fairhaven, in January, I had an evaluation with the former board. My first year there was a 4.0 out of 5. My second year was a 4.2 out of 5 in a positive, so my performance was increasing. January, I had the evaluation. There was an election in April, and in May, they ultimately shifted directions, and obviously I'm looking for another position now. So that way, I have 2 daughters in college, and I really think it's important for me to move on because they're moving in a whole different direction. And also the other piece of it is, and I guess I could keep talking. Yeah, wait, any of those questions, I might already fill it in. But I ended up, I went to Fairhaven hoping that was like my final community. In November of last year with the old board, they had voted to negotiate my contract for another 3 years. Post-election, there was a change in the select board, and that didn't happen. I want to find a community, and I'm hoping that you are the community. From everything that I've seen, it's comparable to what we use Northborough as our comparative community when we do a lot of assessments in regards to salary, population, and everything else. So I feel it's compatible to what I'm doing now, and a lot of the same populations, roughly about the same per capita and everything else. So I think the fit would be perfect. I enjoy a lot of the aspects of some of the projects you have going on and some of the issues that may be lingering. And I look forward to ultimately answering all of your questions and hoping that, I am the perfect, or the better fit, I shouldn't say perfect, but the better fit for Northborough and what you are looking for in your town administrator. That was a long intro.
I appreciate being forthright about some of the things that as you say, it's easy to Google somebody and see a lot of information. So I appreciate you being upfront about that.
Yeah, I appreciate, and I hope that in all aspects, in interviewing, like I worked in higher ed, I've hired people I interview. I ask that any questions that you have, ask it, because obviously after you're going to deliberate, and I don't want you to make any assumptions about me. Ask it first, and I'll tell you where I'm very open and transparent. So thank you.
So we're going to go around the room. First to Julianne.
And again, thank you for the bio. So I think that you mentioned in your cover letter that you've done a little research on Northborough, and we have a lot of projects ahead of us, as I think a lot of towns do. You know, there was that hiatus during COVID. But my question is, how do you engage with various town departments and external stakeholders, the citizens, to make sure that these projects are done in a collaborative way, and that in the end, you know, people are going to feel like they didn't get their full, you know, expectation, but everyone somehow feels okay about it?
Mm-hmm. I think my style is always collaboration. You know, and I apologize because I'll make a lot of references to some of the municipalities I've worked in. It's not necessarily comparing it, but I use it as an example so you know where my skill sets lay. When I went to the community I'm in now, there was a lot of disruption. A select board member had been recalled. The select board ended up going from 3 members to 5. Every department was working in silos, boards and committees as well. I mean, there were things that some of them were doing that I'm like, you know, you can't negotiate a contract on behalf of the town, you know. And so it took about 2 years to build it. You know, now, you know, they used to talk ill of different boards and committees and different staff members. That has completely stopped because I've ended up sort of professionalizing some of them. I go to all of the meetings. And in engaging, I guess, the department heads, my style is that when I first get involved in a project or when I come into a community, I do one-on-one meetings with the department heads so I understand where they're coming from. I also do monthly department head meetings with all of the departments, come in and talk about whatever's going on in their department, or if they come up with a project, how it impacts it. One of the biggest issues I know for this community is the fire station, right? So I've done big capital projects of that sort, and except for one community, I've been engaged in most of them. I'm the chief procurement officer, so a lot of anything and everything with the projects have to get my signature, approval, or sign off. It's really about valuing what the community wants. I utilize a lot of, and I'll reference the master plan, right? The master plan is your sort of blueprint of what the community wants and how they want to see the municipality grow. So I'll take bits and pieces from there and work in trying to move forward in those projects. So the project, it's project management, right? You make sure you get an OPM. The OPM stays oftentimes in different communities, and I don't know how you are here. You create a committee of stakeholders to oversee everything and anything, or you just allow the OPM, this case would be the fire chief and the OPM and myself or a select board member to be able to manage and negotiate those projects. I don't do anything in a silo. I know I have the skill sets and knowledge, and I can list off any of the procurement regulations, but I think it's important that you get different perspectives because, you know, and I'm not going to say, it's not in a mean way, but, you know, the fire department will want bells and whistles. The town can't afford bells and whistles, so you need to make a determination what gets cut. You know, I am also a big stickler. When I was in North Adams, they redid, because we had an airport, and I somehow ended up being the airport manager. But they, the company that revamped the sort of the, you know, the main building, and we decided to put an upstairs so we can rent it out to different businesses, a restaurant, so people can come to the airport, eat, and see the planes come in and out. The builder had a lot of punch list items, and he was working with our OPM, and the OPM kept on saying, well, just let it go, you know, give him the money, because you know, you retain a certain percentage. I would not give him the money, and he was livid. I'm like, until I'm satisfied that I'm gonna take ownership of this building, I'm not giving you anything, right? And then he started doing one thing, and I said, how much did that cost you to do it? And that's how much I gave him back, until every single item on that punch list was done. And then I released the funds. And that was I'm a hard negotiator, because if I work for you, I'll make sure that, like, we're counting pennies in regards to what needs to be done. I think I answered the
I
question.
think you did.
Okay.
Lisa?
Thank you. I like the answer, actually. Okay. Look at some of these things. What methods do you use to direct and supervise the administration of various functions under your control?
I typically, I use the analogy, and it makes it easier for some, like, I feel like I'm municipal government is the orchestra, right? And I'm the conductor, and I see my role as such. Everybody knows their instrument. They're experts in their instruments. They need to know what it's about. They need to know what the latest trend is. They need to know everything in regards to their instrument, i.e. their department, their area of responsibility. I know how everything's supposed to work. I know how everything's supposed to move. And I know when each department should be engaged and involved in certain situations. So my style is such that I would definitely, in regards to the department heads, I think I mentioned that, I have one-on-one meetings with them. Probably for the first 3 months, my style has always been, and it's something that I've brought into municipal government for my higher education years. Every 2 weeks, until we understand each other, we understand our style. When I say something, what that means, what they say something, how does that translate? And also, I'm assessing their level of skill sets. What are they strong in? What areas do I need to develop them professionally to help them grow? In the position that I'm in, I hired a gentleman who had never worked in municipal government, was a town resident, but I saw the potential that he had, and I ended up hiring him as our HR director. HR is one of my wheelhouse. I can do that sleeping. And I ended up training him, mentoring him, sending him to professional development. I allowed him room to grow a little bit because he was interested in moving into a town administrator, town manager position. So I allow staff to grow where they want to go. It can't be, I'm just happy, content sitting here, right? What else are you doing to move your position and yourself forward? And within these last 2 years, he's done so much significant aspects that 2 weeks ago, he resigned from Fairhaven to be the town administrator in adjacent community. And so, I feel proud because I think I worked and developed him. There were 2 clerical staff members who had the skill sets to be department heads, but they didn't have the confidence. I restructured the entire department to give them that position. I ended up adding 1 more position within the budget, just so that, and they've excelled in that role because they were never given that opportunity. One of them hesitates because she's like, I don't want to go to treasurer school. I'm like, you don't have to go, but you got to go to this workshop. I believe in the staff and their skill sets. One of the biggest things for me is definitely, you need to be the subject matter expert. I hold staff accountable too, but in regards to, I make decisions based on the information that I get from you. And you need to know all aspects of your job, because the decisions that I make and also the decisions that I share with you to collaboratively vote on an issue is based on that information. And I always tell staff, when I first begin a position, I tell staff that I'd much rather, if I ask a question that they don't know, that they end up saying, I don't know, can I get back to you? Than sit there and try to figure it out and make up something, because then it's not accurate, factual information.
Great, all right.
Mike?
Yeah, the description of the staff member and the board in Uxbridge sounds super stressful, to say the least. How did you work through that? How did you deal with that?
I self-medicated? No. I was like, where's the IV? No. I've accepted the fact that I've always worked in public sector. And maybe this should have been part of my intro. My undergrad was all, I went to a public school for high school. I went to a public college. I went to a public institution for my master's. I worked in a public higher education institutions, and I ultimately ended up in a public municipal position. I think because I've always been in the public sphere, I accept the fact that oftentimes whatever I do gets scrutinized. In education, it's not in the papers, but it's definitely, but in the municipal government. I really like what I do. It's a given. Handling the stress, I think initially the situation in Uxbridge sort of, I mean, I'm human, right? It knocked me down for a minute, because I felt like I was doing the best thing for the community as well as an ethical aspect. But the results wasn't what I was expecting. I learned from those, because obviously there was mistakes made. I've learned from it. I've learned from the experience, and when I went to my next community in regards to it, I served them a little bit better. I guess I released stress by, I'd say I'd run on a track, but that's not true. Post-COVID, I didn't do anything. I was just happy that we could actually, do takeout.
All right, thank you.
Laura?
Thank you, and I do appreciate you sharing that. That sounds like a really tough experience to go through, so thank you. Can you tell us about a time that you had to make or deal with a difficult financial situation and what your decision-making process was?
Mm-hmm. My finance director in the community that I'm in retired. We didn't have a finance director. We hired another finance director from another community to be almost like a consultant, and they helped us put a budget through the first year. Because his community does overrides, he felt like, we'll just do an override rather than balancing the budget. And it was not received well at all. And the lesson that I learned from that is the community doesn't like overrides unless it's, debt exclusion, which is, for a specific time period. I ended up last year bringing in another person. The budget was $2.2 million short in a deficit. The budget in Fairhaven is my budget, so I presented to the town meeting and to the select board and FinCom, and they make recommendations in regards to what the warrant articles are in the budget. So what I ended up doing, rather than myself in a complete silo with my finance team working out the deficit, I made it public. I talked to the select board, FinCom, and I ended up creating a working committee that was made up of the school, finance committee, select board, and two other folks. So there was a 5-member board that worked directly as an advisory board to me, and we talked about all of the issues. And one of the things that I can say that I really was grateful for is there was a gentleman in the finance committee that I don't want to say we were adversary, but he would always challenge what I said and did, and once he came into the fold and he understood how I was thinking and what I was going through, and he got a lot of the background information, he and I, like, I feel like he's one of my support now. I can go to him and say, hey, this is happening, what are your thoughts? Where before it was, in a public meeting, and oftentimes, and I adore him now. He's definitely a mentor. And I always put people that are in opposition in a committee or a board or even advisory to myself, because I think it's important to know what the other side's thinking, and also because I wouldn't necessarily think that. There have been a few occasions in other communities that I've done that, and it's actually helped the process, because some of the skepticism is things that I would not have thought of, and literally I was like, oh my God, oh yeah, that would negatively affect this. And we adjusted and changed. And then, the people that are involved feel listened to and engaged as well.
Thank you.
Maybe a little bit of a similar question. At the beginning of your interview, you certainly spoke of some challenging situations that didn't necessarily end well for you personally. I'd love you to describe a challenging situation that did end well and how you got there, related to municipal administration.
I think the biggest accomplishment is my development of the staff. Our team is incredible. I always compliment them. And actually the running joke is, if I give you a compliment, it's like a golden star, because because I'm always business oriented. And so when I'm like, good job, they're like, whoa. But I think the biggest accomplishment is developing the staff that I have, and also changing a lot of the infrastructure within budget and making it a more positive outcome in a municipality. I often engaged in the community. I go to the first year I was, which is not an obligation of the position, but I went and participated in the parades. I went to community events. We have a belonging committee, which I think you do too. They put out events, and I would show up to the event, me and, the 5-member board and maybe 3 or 4 other residents, but I would always show up and be actively engaged. I asked the Board of Health agent to give me a list of all of the restaurants in town. My goal in regards to it was to hit every single restaurant in town, to just be able to go in and see what the businesses were like, what was going on, what was some of the shortfalls, because at lunchtime when you sit and talk, people will sort of, oh yeah, the town sucks, or, I had to do this, the permit didn't work. I apologize, but I'm direct. But yeah, so yeah, I do. I get engaged, and I think I've had a lot of positive. I'm very much a doer. I didn't bring it, but I had presented it to our select board. All of the things within a 2-year period that I've done, it was literally 4 pages long, or my administration, right? The biggest one, I think that was an accomplishment. For 10 years, the town was talking about doing a regional dispatch. They kept on talking about regional dispatch consistently for 10 years. I came on board. The fire chief and the police chief talked to me in regards to it. I was, you don't make any decisions when you're first new in a position, because everybody's jockeying for their favor. So, I'll see. And then eventually I ended up saying he's like, just come and see how it works. I went to the fire station. I sat in the fire station, because the police had a dispatch station, the fire had a dispatch station, but they were all in the same building. I sat there for about 2 hours, and the system was so convoluted because the firefighters were covering the dispatch. If they got called out, because our firefighters are, and it's the same, I think, here, firefighter and EMTs. That's why you guys are a compatible community, see? And so they ended up, they would get called, and they had, before they could leave, someone had to cover the station or the call station. I saw the fire chief sit at the dispatch for over 45 minutes to an hour. And also the transition when they have to tell each other what's going on. I said, what if one person forgot to mention something and then nobody knew where the other person was? So looking at that, we ended up starting to work more towards a regional dispatch system, and within 8 months to a year of me being there, we had a contract with Holbrook. We went to Semrick first. I didn't like them. I didn't like their methodology, and they made us give us our capital money back to them because they had capital investments, and I didn't think that was right. Holbrook allowed us to keep that, and so I think that was more a better option for the town, because I'm always, again, looking for the benefit, anything that would benefit the town. There's a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Julianne?
Well, it sounds like one of your passions is staff development, and that's wonderful. But walk us through if an employee or a department is underperforming. How do you handle that?
I think the biggest part for me in regards to being able to understand that, I've been doing this for a long time, right? Not so much in municipal, but managing people in higher ed and everything else. The first thing I think I established, the one-on-one meetings, right? We come in, what do you have for me? How are some of your projects going? Where are you? If we, every 2 weeks there's no progress, you and I are going to have a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So what's going on? Why is this not happening? I thought you were going to write the grant then. So it's a progress in development, and they move forward in that direction. Once I understand where their strengths and weaknesses are, I don't like the weaknesses, but areas of opportunity for growth, right? I start building and leveraging that piece of it. For those that are doing better, if they have an interest in a different area in municipality, I give them that opportunity to do a project in a different area so they can build their skill sets and move up in municipality and or do a town administrator position. I do yearly evaluations, but I don't think, it's just not my style. I wouldn't wait till the yearly evaluation to tell someone, these are all of the things you've done wrong the whole year, and they've never had an opportunity to grow, learn from their mistakes, and give an opportunity for them to learn and grow. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Lisa?
Mesmerized sometimes you speak. I'm like, oh, it's higher education. It just keeps coming out like, oh, yes, that's right. Okay, so, let's see. Some of these, I've asked kind of the same questions, and you go, oh, okay. I'm hoping I didn't ask you this one. How have you managed the appointment and removal of the department heads in previous roles, and what approach would you take in Northborough? If there was an underperformance situation, or how would you create, if it wasn't going to work, how would you then take care of business?
Have a come to Jesus moment? It's the hardest part, or the part that I hate most, but it's a necessary part. Ironically, today, because my HR director became a town administrator, I have an interim HR director, so she's doing a lot of the stuff, but really I'm managing the process. There's a gentleman who came in because I created a facilities department because all of our buildings were falling apart, and there was the town hall is a historic building, and there was one custodial staff member in that building. He did everything. So I promoted him to a facilities manager position, was able to do it budgetarily, and then took all of the part-time people in the different departments and created a department of facilities management. He ended up hiring someone, because I promote a lot of sort of diverse employment. He ended up hiring a veteran, and the gentleman was really not a good fit. There was always an issue. They're supposed to have a half an hour break. He's working at the police station. He's taking an hour and a half. He'll go in, look at something, come out for 45 minutes, an hour, and not do it. So the facilities manager is fairly new, inexperienced manager. So in helping him, I kept on coaching him. These are some of the things you need to look at. He may be a great guy, but if he's not performing, then what is that saying to the other department heads and other staff members that are working their butts off and seeing you letting him go? Because of all of the stuff that's been happening, and then there was another situation that led me to believe he may end up being a workman's comp claim. We decided that we were going to terminate him because he was still in his probationary period. And so we did all that. We met with him, and we had to terminate. I mean, it sucks, but we had to do it. And just because, again, my job, I see in regards to, like, one, I'm a problem solver, but two, I'm also making sure that I'm a risk management person, so I need to determine the risk of the community, right? Because it's a litigious society. So what's going to get us sued? What's going to get us in a position that we have to defend ourselves? So I'm always looking and protecting the town under those realms.
Mike?
Sort of with the public, is there, or a time you can describe, having to sort of think on your feet or in the moment, with, at say town meeting, or with either select board or people who show up to say a meeting or something like that? Any sort of interesting stories and what occurred, what happened, or?
I'm not clear what you're asking.
So, say, what was there a time when dealing with the public, say at like a public event, like town meeting, like a select board meeting, where you had to kind of think on your feet or address a sensitive issue with like a member of the public, with a citizen of Fairhaven or Uxbridge or the places that you've worked?
I mean, I'm very customer service oriented, and I truly have an open door policy. Residents can, with my doors open, the staff know that if a resident comes in, they want to see me, they can walk right in. They'll ask if I'm not in the middle of a project or something, and they come in and see me. I've had, and that's just because I want to be engaged, and we're servicing the residents. They're not always right, but oftentimes before, when I came in, literally resident, staff member yelling at each other across the frickin' office. You get up. One day I heard like a staff member say to her, "Get out of my office." I went and talked to the resident, and then I went and talked to the staff member, and I kindly said to her, "Last I checked, town meeting belonged to that gentleman that's just walking out the door. It's not your office. You just happen to work here." And we had a conversation in regards to professionalism. I had her talk about customer service, because she was part of the support staff, and part of CBA. There was I was restricted to a lot, but I ended up having a couple of meetings with her. Just to say, "You okay?" If you get aggravated, rather than react, tell the person, "Hold on a second, I'll be right back. You come and get me. I will go handle the situation for you," rather than you losing control. So that, my job is constant. If I don't have the answers, I never provide an answer. It's going to sound egotistical, but I always know what I'm talking about whenever it's some issue. And if I don't, I bring in someone who could answer that information. You know, at town meeting, they've asked questions that I was like, oh, you know, hold on a second, and I'll turn to the town accountant and say, do you know how much is in that line item or that reserve fund? I will never provide inaccurate information.
Thank you.
Laura?
Thank you. I appreciate how you're telling stories with your experience in the background. So my question now is, in your view, what are the most important qualities of a town administrator, and how would you say you embody those?
The most important qualities of a town administrator. For me, I think it's integrity, trust, honesty, ethics, transparency, communication. I think I do all that. I mean, I will stand up, you know, I don't know. I screw up idiomatic expressions all the time, so I apologize ahead of, but you know, I will die on the sword or whatever that expression is in regards to my ethics and integrity, because I value that more than anything else, and when it's challenged, I feel personally offended, because I know that that's the one thing I hold true. I do what I do to the best of my abilities. When I go into a community, and something you don't know about me, I'm an empty nester. So my job is my life. So I don't want to go home by myself. So literally, even in the community that I'm in, I go in the morning, and sometimes I stay 8:30, 9 o'clock. And if I'm there that late, sometimes I go to the board meetings, or whoever board is meeting that night and stuff like that. But I think I'm very open, transparent, not only for you as select board members, but also the department heads. Like, again, you know, if a department head wants to know why I made a decision, like today the fire chief asked me, I pulled an article of his that, because we're having special town meeting, we're trying to get 40R passed. I ended up in the warrant pulling his article for a fire truck. And, you know, we had a one-on-one meeting. He goes, you know, I saw that none of my articles were there. I'm like, well, because 90% of them is being supported by ARPA, and the big fire truck is, I couldn't remember why. I called the town accountant. She couldn't remember why we pulled it. And then the chief said something about capital. I was like, that's it. The Finance Committee was upset that people were putting capital projects at special town meeting and weren't going through the process of the Capital Improvement Committee, and weren't being vetted in that way. So I pulled it because it can only go through the capital, which would only be at annual town meeting. And when I realized that, he was like, yeah, okay, you know. So yeah, so there's different scenarios and things like that. Yeah, well, you know, the position, there's so many facets to it. It's 100 moving parts, and you just have to be, like I said, the orchestra. You know, okay, this turn, and wait, this is here, you know, and being able to manage all that, and the residents as well, and all of the stakeholders, the businesses, you know, so.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So if chosen to be Northborough's next town administrator, how would you assess the organization, both the structure and the people involved, and how would you then report that back to the select board?
So if I was selected, my first week, I guess I was sort of like my planning period, I would first meet with each of you individually, because, you know, if we met together, it would be an open, we'd have to put it in an announcement. But I would meet with each one of you to determine what you see and what your goals are for the community, and also how collectively, if there's any shared commonalities in those projects. I would definitely work in regards to getting, I want to say, sort of bigger picture goals for the community. You know, the master plan lays a lot of it out, but what is it that you as select board members want for the community? And then within those goals, then I would take those goals and, as I learn the community, implement it and move it into the departments and seeing how we can, in different avenues, make those happen. I think I answered, I'm a doer, so like I can't, it's my higher education, like I think outside of the box of municipality.
I think what I was trying to ask in the question was how to assess the organization.
I've been,
as well as
yeah,
the
yeah,
staff.
yeah. I've been doing this a lot, that some of it is inherent skills that I just possess. I can interview someone within 3 minutes and tell you if they're going to be a good fit for the community or not, and the team, and what skill sets they have in regards to it. I can't explain it. I've been doing it for so long, it's inherent. One of the things that I do, I do data analysis. You know, how many people are we servicing? Are we properly staffed? If a staff member is struggling, is it because they're struggling because of lack of knowledge for that position, or is it over their head? You know, the Peter principle, you promote someone thinking that's the next step, but they really would have been more successful at a lower level doing something different. Departments and the organization themselves is looking at systematic issues. You collectively are residents, you know what works, what doesn't work. I listen, you know, people send me email, I listen to residents, what do you like about town? We could do it a formal process by surveys and all of that, but I think the lived experience shows and improves a lot better. You know, if a board is constantly fighting with each other, I don't need to do a survey. I could just show up to the meeting and say, what's going on? How can I help you develop your board and committee to a professional level and do the training? You know, in the community that I'm in, they never had an all-staff training day. I close town hall for the public, and all of the staff members have a training day, and we do all issues that are required statutorily, as well as training on working with people that are different, working in regards to customer service, everything and anything. And I also, for the first time, they've never done it in the community, I had an all-board, board and commission and committee meeting where all boards and committees had a training, brought in Labor Council, brought in Town Council. They did a training in regards to ethics. They did a training in regards to their role, you know, individually. So we have a running joke in the town that if the baton's not in the middle, you can't hold it by yourself, right? The baton needs to be in the middle. Because a lot of boards and committees were doing things independent. One person's doing this, one person's doing that, and they never voted for that to happen, and it was in opposition to each other. And so they, you know, again, everybody was working in their own silos, but there was no collaboration for the greater good of the community. So I do a lot of that.
Thank you.
So I want to pick up on your comment of what you said, that you're a person who likes to think outside the box. As we move into what I'm supposing might be a new type of economy, people working from home more, some businesses flourishing, other businesses not, how do you use that outside of the box thinking to do like a downtown revitalization or, you know, economic development in a town?
I think it's really looking at a lot of what other municipalities are doing, right? And not just in Massachusetts. I have this vision, and I want to do it in a community. I went to either North Carolina or South Carolina, and, you know, we're working on 40R for mixed use. There was an entire community developed. The bottom level was retail. There was a dry cleaner. There was a bar. There was a community center. There was a grocery store, a convenience store, everything on the bottom. The upstairs were all apartments and residential stuff. And you literally parked down the street and had to walk into the community, and you got to enjoy the like it's a mixed use sort of and those are the concepts that I think that I'd like to implement. Connecticut, there's a town in Connecticut that was successfully being able to do that as well, and I think it's doable. Doing the 40R is applicable because you're getting the mixed use and being able to do both in a certain location. But I think it's the most incredible, and I promise to you, regardless of what happened, I will forward it on to Angie. Because she might need it. So I'll forward it on to her, and you guys can see the community because I think it's it's an incredible concept. We're almost at a place in the community that I'm in now to get over the first hump of the 40R. If town meeting votes for it, then I think it can come to fruition, especially by the waterfront. We have like 32 miles of waterfront. My goal for the community, and there's some resistance in regards to it, but it's really to do, like, I want to have like restaurants and sort of like places that people can go and hang out on the waterfront, and it's a working waterfront. I would pay money to sit at a restaurant and watch the fishermen come in and bring in their lobsters or their catch, or it's whatever it is. And so that's my vision, and that's what I'm looking at for relative to economic development, and it's doable. So those are the things that I'm getting excited. Like it's doable, but you just gotta like convince the community, and I hope that it's doable here. Again, I'd have to learn what the values of your community are, what you'd like to see. I'm not gonna, put a frickin' barge inland, but but
The Hassanpet River.
And a couple ponds.
Yeah. Well, actually, you could do a lot. Well, frickin' look at what was it? Providence with Mayor Cianci.
That's a beautiful.
Yeah, the water fires. Frickin', I just went there like 3 weekends ago. They have like in each of the blocks. There's like bands playing. There's tents. It's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah, it can. Yes, you know what I mean? So you steal, and you think differently in regards to how you apply it here. It's doable. Anything is doable if there's a consensus and you have buy-in.
Thank you.
And well, again, on that note too, I'm one who's looking down the road now at the changes that the economy is going to bring to us. That everything that we've already done in the past had some stability, and it could be done in a way that we've all been, recognizing. I'm the oldest in the group, so I remember the mom and pops starting out like the gas station would wash your windshield and pump your gas, and all of a sudden that disappeared because the corporate America took it over. All these takeovers have been happening. We've gotten to a point now where there's not that ease of being able to do a little startup company, or to be able to do the same type of customer services that we once did. And you look around now and there's signs everywhere, for lease, for lease, for lease. All these places are closing up. Big box stores are closing up. Things that we have just been able to do going into purchase is almost non-existent anymore. So we have to change the way we actually live our lives. Doing a project, you have to plan in advance to order your paint on, coming in a week and a half if you're lucky. I need it today. That's not going to work for me. So watching what's happening with this, it's a new model that we're going to have to start to live with, where the computers are taking over, or robotics and that sort of thing. How do we look at a future where our tax base is being so torn, and so you're going to have to make choices pretty soon. It's like, well, if you want another employee in your department, then maybe there aren't going to be raises this year, or things of that nature. That's going to have to, there's going to be some constraints that we're going to have to work with, because everything has just exploded in terms of expenses, and people with fixed incomes cannot meet the changes that are happening. So knowing that, I mean, in our position, and your position to be able to carry that out, what have you thought of that in the future? I mean, I love the waterways. We do have a few. We've talked about that. But right now, the ducks are walking on them, so they really need a little work.
Hey, Boston Common has the statues of
Yeah,
the ducks, and it's,
Yeah,
it's a tourist attraction.
It is a tourist attraction. Well, people will be watching these, boy, those poor things, look at that, there's no water, what are they walking?
Yeah.
So to be able to start to pivot and looking down the road at how are we going to manage? Because many towns out here, there's a lot of vacancies. So, and how are we gonna change that and not just put all the burden on the taxpayer?
I guess if I had the answer, I wouldn't be sitting here, right? I'd be Jeff Bezos or something. No, all kidding aside, I think that's the challenge a lot of municipalities are facing, particularly, and I think some of the ways that government can sort of spearhead some of those aspects is, introducing 40R, whereas a business that would have only been a box business can maybe start doing residential, which would then tie into some of the housing shortages that I think everybody's facing across the municipality as well, the Commonwealth, as well as I think nationally. Taking some of those deficiencies in regards to it, one of the things that I have an idea of doing, which I have to figure out how I could technically implement it within MGL and everything else, is if there's a building that's vacant, because sometimes the businesses are outpricing, they're leasing it or renting it for way more because they want to make a profit. The business can't support that profit because they're new. Tax incentives for the businesses to sort of counteract some of those. But also, one of the things that's the thing that I said I'm kind of toying at is putting a fee on the businesses that are vacant, because we have a couple of places that there's like plaza strips that are empty, and part of the people that own the strip are not making any effort to fill it because it's a tax write-off. And so if you then impose some type of fee for each time or for any length of time that business is vacant, they would make more of an effort to fill those buildings. All right. So do you see where I'm going with it in regards to, so it's not punitive, but it's cooperative. Right. And so that's how I look, and that's, I guess, the out of the box thinking, right? How do we make them productive? Because as a municipality, you can't go to a property owner and say, this is what I need you to do, right? I can try to recruit as many businesses with the town planner to try to get innovative businesses and, local and stuff like that. But if they're like, nope, if you don't have someone buying, I can't produce that person. So I think those are sort of the incentives. Bigger projects, I would definitely look at, and I'd obviously come to you collectively for giving them sort of tax incentive financing and or the TIFs, right? So that they get a benefit in the beginning. When I was at North Adams, Mass MoCA itself saved North Adams. Right, North Adams is a city because it has a mayor form of government, but it's 10,000 people. It's in a very depressed area, and if Mass MoCA came, but literally Mass MoCA does not pay taxes to the city, but because of all of the businesses that have added into there and the venues and the different things, those are taxed and helped the municipality. When I was there, I was trying to find a way not out of the contract, but to amend the contract that if they made a certain amount of profit, then the city would get a certain kickback, because otherwise, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
like most towns, right, Northborough, a significant portion of our budget is the school system. So can you describe, how you've partnered, how you've worked with, successes, maybe not successes, with school committees, superintendents, managing the schools, managing the properties?
I have a great relationship with the superintendent, and it was something that we developed prior to that, and I guess more so because it was the first time both positions were filled by women. And so there was a sense of camaraderie in making sure the other one succeeded. Once a month, we would have lunch together and talk about what issues, concerns that are coming up, and also it allowed us a relationship to be able to, if there's something going wrong, literally I can text her and say, hey, do you have a minute? And she'll call me. Yesterday, actually no, this morning, I was in we were trying to do a natural gas collaboration, where we pool all of the natural gases and do almost like a municipal aggregate, but for natural gas.
Okay.
But only on the municipal side, not the resident side. And we had the contract, but the school were the only ones involved in it. They didn't want to sign the contract to continue because they had, they don't know what we were doing. We called each other, we had a meeting with the group, we talked about it, we're like, well, incorporate the entire community, do out the cost assessment, because I think we're going to save money. If it would not just the school, but the municipality, DPW, the water treatment plant, the sewer treatment plant, all use natural gas. And so if we put all of those resources together, I'm thinking it'll save the town money, because gas typically, I think, is at 11 cents, but if we pool it together and go into a co-op, it'll probably be anywhere between 7 or 6 cents. And then, the savings is incredible, and it's fixed rates. We have an IT, the town pays for the IT department, but the IT is supported by the school. When she and I, when we're having concerns, she and I agreed. I was like, look, when it's testing season, just say, send me a text, it's testing season, or have the IT director tell me it's testing season. I send out a note to everybody at town hall, testing season, unless it's an emergency, don't bother IT. So we do have that collaboration. I had put her on this committee and it's also school committee. I put them on the selection, the advisory board for the budget. And initially we were splitting, 1 million you, 1 million me kind of thing, and then we ended up that we found I worked with our DPW board, because our DPW is an independent body itself, and I work with them. We ended up getting trash fees because we lost our cannabis fees because of the state's changes in regulations for the cannabis industry, and so we needed to find that money, and it all works together. We've had our disagreements, but we're always looking for solutions.
All right. Thank you.
Laura?
Thank you. So Northborough, like many other municipalities, has some really expensive projects coming up. We've got some big building projects. Do you have any creative solutions for how we can, there's going to be a big tax impact on our residents. Any thoughts on how we can save money on taxes?
For municipal buildings?
It's tough. I guess it's more the financial planning piece. We've got a lot of people on fixed incomes.
Yeah. I guess in financial planning, what I would do is probably a forecasting and also looking at, where are we going? Using the master plan as well, and, what are the goals? At the, whatever you get for free cash, creating stabilization funds so you consistently add to it, and then at some point it'll be big enough to do whatever you want, or at least significant enough to be able to not make a big impact in regards to paying back the debt. I would work with the finance team definitively to see, what debt was coming off, because in some municipalities do this, they let the debt run down, and then people are paying, this amount of taxes, and then all of a sudden they're paying this, and then when taxes go up, they start, so you really want to maintain the tax level. So when in 3 years a debt's coming out, you need to start looking at what we can bring in 3 years. Because the first year of any debt, as you know, doesn't, like, town meeting may vote for it, but the debt doesn't come into fruition until 2 years forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think probably my last question, I'm trying to think of a good way to ask it. So, since you started doing municipal government as a career, you've had, I think, 4 positions in about 8 years. You went through the stories on those. I was tempted to ask, what would you have to do differently to prevent that? But I don't want to ask that, because I don't think it's a fair question. What if we hired you? What would we have to do to make sure that you stayed here successfully?
Give me a contract that says whoever comes in doesn't kick me out.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to sit in a community and be old, right? I have no kids in the house. You have me like 200% of the time. Take advantage of it. I'm telling. I problem solve. I can't sit still. I am constantly doing things. I hope to communicate with all of you collectively to be able to sort of, keep you updated. If not, like I said, the one-on-one meetings, you tell me how you like to be communicated. You'll tell me, I'd rather have a text, I'd rather have an email, whatever it is. But I think for me, definitively is, I really, I don't know, I'm always self-reflective, right? I'm not the person that, they screwed up. What did I do to have this happen, or why did this happen in regards to it? And I learned my lessons, right? I've learned in regards to some of the community, some communities, change is difficult. And so, I've learned how to manage change by introducing, there's that concept, I can't remember who the author is, it's called 5 Degrees of Change. So you introduce only 5 degrees of change. So they get used to the 5 degrees, because it's slight, it's not, and then once they get used to that, you go another 5 degrees, 5 degrees, 5 degrees. I'm trying to implement that. I'm a doer, so I want to see results. Like in municipal government oftentimes is slow. And so when I see a problem, I try to fix it. I want, I guess, a level of stability. Also knowing that, I'll have my challenges, right? In any community, anything that you do, there will be opposition. And so understanding what that opposition is. And, I think I said it, one time I'll sort of, with the board itself, work on these projects that'll satisfy these groups of constituencies. The next time you go to the other side and provide them something so everybody feels like they've gotten something out of it. Inevitably the work that you do, that we do, you can't make everybody happy. And right now, I think nationally and locally, there is a voice that's out there that's not conducive to collaboration, and people say things that you would typically have not said out loud. And I don't know, that's the part that I struggle with in regards to just the level of toxicity with each other, and I think a lot of it is because of social media and sort of Zoom meetings, because whatever, you can't engage and see how what you say is affecting someone else. In a space like this, you can read body language, you can see when someone goes, you know, and when you do it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, you can't see the results, so
Thank you. So we've gone around the room a few times, and we're over the hour that we're into this, but you're the last interview of the evening, so we're not as time crunched. Does anyone else have any burning questions for Angie before we turn the tables?
Just one more. So are you currently still living in Fairhaven?
I actually live in Fall River,
Okay.
and if I was offered the position here, I have no ties to staying. I would shift closer.
Okay, so the goal would be to relocate
Yeah,
closer.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, the only time I ever commuted was when my kids were still at home in high school. I didn't want to take them out of the school system and all of the activities they were engaged in, so I literally, side note, nothing with the interview. So I lived in Sturbridge. I commuted from Sturbridge to North Adams, which was a 2-hour and 10-minute ride one way. I miss it because I processed a lot going and coming back. And then when I got the position in Fairhaven, it was an hour and a half, and they kept on asking me, why, you know, how can you commute 1 hour and a half? I go, you guys cut my commute by 40 minutes. You know, so, but, you know, I moved closer, but I would relocate again because I have no vested interest in what school systems because my kids are in college.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll turn the tables now and ask you, are there any questions you would like to ask us, or is there anything you want to add that you wished we had asked you about but did not?
I think for me, if I am offered the position, is what would you, I guess, individually or collectively, actually not or, and collectively, what would you want to be a priority for? So, you know, I'm here. Hi, how you doing? We've had a meeting. What do you want me to do first? What would be the priority when you came in that needed attention?
We want to continue in the usual order. Julianne, would you like to be volunteered first?
Well, after you got settled and understood the town, for me, it is establishing a long-term plan for the big projects that we have, that we're facing. And, you know, bearing in mind that we, you know, keep taxes at a fair rate, but establishing it in such a way that people know where we're going and feel confident that we're going to get there. But also to make sure that those projects are done in such a way, I said this before, that in 100 years people say they made good decisions at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my priority.
Okay.
Lisa?
I don't know.
That's all right.
I'm tired.
I know.
You want to skip over to Mike, and if you think of something, we can go back to you?
Go to Mike.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of priorities, right? There's the town-owned buildings and you know, that need work, and there's a lot of large capital projects. You know, it's also, right, Northborough is a community that, like, I moved to, right, for the school system, for the community, you know, for the level of services that the police, fire, the DPW all provide every day. So a priority, you know, for me would be how are we maintaining and building on those services, on the school system, on public safety, on public works, to build on the successes of the past, so that you're working off that foundation, but to continue to have a success story. And right, the magic to that is, or the hard part is, how do you do all that without pricing people out of town? Mm-hmm. You know, and having those increases in property taxes, and, you know, it's not just property taxes going up, it's every other expense, you know, that has gone up. So how do you do that? So having a, you know, and as you kind of said earlier, right, if you knew that, you'd be sitting somewhere else making, you know, airplane money. But, you know, so that would be sort of one of my priorities is, you know, what's a way forward that if we can't get there 100%, how can we get there 60 or 75% and do the most good and move forward? I would say that would be kind of my vision.
I think in addition to what my other select board members have mentioned, I really like, again, what Tim has brought in terms of more transparency and interaction between the goals of staff, the needs of staff, and just making sure we've got really clear lines of communication to make sure we understand what's coming up to make good decisions. I like being involved and informed in the decision-making process and being a part of that, and just, making sure that we're listening to the constituents of the town and making sure that we're making the best decision for the community. Thank you, though.
What to do first is a tough question to ask the board, because personally, I'd want to see that from the town administrator. General things, get to know the staff, get to know the community. In terms of time of year, get to know the budget, because that's got to get done. That's happens to be the timing that we're is we've got to start working on that in advance of Springtown meeting. Do you have any other questions that you wanted to ask us, or anything else?
I can.
Oh, sure.
I had some time to recover. What I've always felt that was important and has happened, and Tim has carried out one of those things. He created a financial summit and had all the departments together for the first time, and that we could hear what each department was looking for collectively. And that globalization of need, I think, is the best way to approach what needs to be done, because in the silos, as you've talked about, in the past we have had silos, you don't understand what everybody is looking for. You hear from this one, or you might hear from this one. And then the other one that's quiet, you don't even realize what's going on. So to me, this was a great way of starting our new approach to look at things of value and value added, and how we're going to be able to do a good balance. Because in the past, I don't believe we've done a good balance. My municipal buildings are in terrible shape, which we really have to bring back, because people have to work in these buildings, and they spend their 8 hours a day, sometimes a lot longer. And really, it should be something that you enjoy coming to, not just because the people that you work with are wonderful people, but your surroundings are equally wonderful. So I'm kind of hoping that we can bring that globalization together.
That's doable.
Thank you. Now, is there anything else you wanted to ask us? Or if not, we can wrap things up.
In respect of your time, because I know it's a late night for you guys, I will. But if I need anything, Angie, I'll send it to Angie.
You'll remember her name for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Angie, for joining us tonight.
Thank
we
you.
appreciated meeting you, and we look forward to, now we start to have to make some difficult decisions. You will hear from Tim or Angie or someone in the near future about next steps.
Excellent. Thank
Great.
you. It was
Thanks
a
so much.
pleasure meeting all of you.
Likewise.
If I may.
I know, it's like...
Nice to meet you.
Stay seated.
Thank you.
Fall River.
Thank you very much. A random question. You were on the president of the Friends
getting a shot
Sturbridge.
Monday.
Was Ellie Chesbrough the library director then?
No, it was
Only you?
Becky.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
She's the only director of Sturbridge that I knew. For my old town, we worked with her pretty closely on a number of things.
Oh,
so.
that's funny. Yeah,
Okay.
no, Becky, she lives in actually Northampton,
Okay.
and she commutes to Sturbridge.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed meeting you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Excellent. Tim? Great.
Good, nice job, thank you. Appreciate it, thank you.
Very nice to meet you. Hi, you two. Reserve residents? Yes. I love the residents. Hi, I'm Angie. How are you? Hopefully you're next time administrator. How are you? Jason, it's a pleasure. So, you guys live in town? Yes. Well, I don't know. It might be a meeting this place.
Sit down.
All right. Now the hard part.
Ellison?
I know.
Yeah, I know, I'm starting to
Yeah.
feel like,
Yeah, it gets warm if it's not cooling, but when it's cooling, it's too cold.
Cooling.
It's really cooling.
Needs a Goldilocks, I think.
We
That's
need
a
like,
Goldilocks.
what's
Yes,
the
it
heating,
does.
they call radiant flooring, something like
Ooh.
that.
How about just heated seats, like
you
cars?
can actually get those, right? You just lay them right on you.
Do have some ARPA money left, just saying.
So, shall we,
Yeah,
I'm tired, I don't even want to talk anymore.
yeah. I mean, we can, that's all right.
Sorry.
I mean, this is a public meeting. You are recording.
No, you guys have to do your deliberation. I apologize. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night. And if nothing else, the decision is Angie Lopes, Ellison is the town.
Good night. Thank
Very
you.
much. Good night.
I-
All right, so, process-wise, as we know, we could just table everything till Monday and not talk at all. I think, Tim, your request was, if we can, narrow it down to a couple so you could invite them in to meet staff in advance of Monday night, and maybe perhaps we could then, make a decision down to one then. So
That would be
that's
awesome, but
Yeah.
no problem, I'll make
Right.
it work no matter what.
Right. So I just wanted to open up to the board and see what we wanted to do. If anyone has any thoughts?
Well, I don't think I'm ready to do the, meeting the staff yet, personally, from the 5 that we've talked to. I want to think about it, I'm just not,
We did about 1 hour with 4 people.
Yep.
Is there any thought or appetite about a second round of interviews before people meet staff?
So with the same people?
Well, maybe whittle down. So say
We
down
can.
to,
I think
say
if
do
we
2.
if we narrowed it down, for example, to 2 and wanted to bring those 2 back, I'd want to think about some concrete questions.
Right,
There
right.
might be
I
very
think we-
specific questions for candidates.
Right.
If we felt the need to do that. That could be a way if we're really tied, if we love 2 people and we needed to make a decision between the 2, that might be one way that we could do it.
Right. Yeah, because I kind of agree with Lisa. It's a lot over 2 nights, and I don't want to. Obviously, we just saw 2 people here. I also want to make sure reviewing notes and looking at our first 2 candidates.
well, you can clone people now. Why don't we just put Tim in the clone machine? And then we
It's in the
can,
basement, I just fired it up there.
yeah, this isn't the real Tim right now.
Right.
It's the avatar Tim.
We did make a joke about a cardboard cutout for me, and we just put it in the seat.
Just stand there with
Be a
the
lot
av-
cheaper.
Like this.
Or just like a chatbot just to respond to my stupid emails.
Yes, Michael.
Yes.
So,
Right on
so-
that.
all right, so we can, that's something we can discuss,
Yeah.
Monday after we've digested and the community has digested the interviews, and I'm sure we will all get phone calls and emails from people with their thoughts, and
Yeah,
they'll
I
probably
think
be
so.
all over the place, but it should be beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea. I mean, it's just, I feel that you really do have to think a lot. I mean, you look at the paper, you meet, you talk with people, sometimes there's 2 different things going on. I'm a little concerned that we have to make a decision that's going to be a good one, and I don't think we can rush it, unfortunately. So, and we've got Tim and Diane here for a while, and Diane, of course, for a longer while. So, that's kind of my thoughts.
I think, based on the fact that we did do these recorded, I would much prefer to give the public an opportunity to chime in before we eliminate, I don't know, anyway, before we select who we want to
Narrow
go
it down.
forward with.
Yeah.
I know that when we went through this with Tim, one thing that we said is that we wanted to have more engagement, so I love the idea of being able to meet with staff.
Yeah.
But I would love the opportunity just to go and review this. We've gone through, everybody's been a real delight to meet, but it's just going to be looking through the specifics of who will be the best fit for the town. I would rather wait.
Good. Sounds good. It sounds like we
Wait.
have consensus on no deliberations at all tonight. Monday night, we have that as an agenda item on our meeting. So we'll discuss it then and take actions. Hopefully we can do some narrowing down. And if we, for example, if we don't narrow it down to one, if we narrow it down to, either way, I guess we could, narrow it down to a couple. If we do that, then Tim can schedule some time to meet staff with those candidates. But also Monday night, we then set a date for a follow-up meeting to consider making a final decision and beginning that process. And just to remind, we all remember, but for the public's benefit, we had decided that just like we did last time, we would make a conditional offer of employment, subject to not only contract negotiations, but also the background investigation that MRI will do again for us. Julianne?
What time are we starting on Monday?
We set that for, because we don't have.
I think
any-
it's 7.
We started at 7.
No executive session.
Okay,
I think it's
right.
7.
Should we start at 6 so we don't?
You remember?
It is too late to modify to go earlier, because it's,
Yeah, it's past, well,
yeah.
unless it's unforeseen. I don't know about changing
Yeah.
time. I don't think you
Yeah,
can.
I'd be uncomfortable. I think that's not even gray area, to be honest. It's open meeting.
Well, would you want to start early, though?
Give us a little more time.
I want to
yeah.
have enough time to hash these things out.
No, I mean, don't be afraid. I mean, you have time, and you can always have another meeting just for that topic,
Yeah.
if you so chose, or bringing back other candidates. Not other,
Well,
but
and when is our next meeting after Monday?
Well, technically, we will decide that on Monday, because we haven't done the review of the upcoming meetings, but it will likely be the 21st of October.
Oh,
What?
no.
You are posted for 6 PM on Monday.
We are posted for, okay.
I thought it was 6, yeah.
Oh, okay, it is 6?
That's good.
You'd know, because you sent them out.
Did better than we thought.
Okay, thanks, yeah.
Coming straight from work again, all right.
Yep. Okay,
At
all
least I
right.
can bring ice cream.
So we're starting at
ice
6. We do
cream?
have a full agenda, but
Hey, what kind?
but that will give us a little bit more time to talk about this as we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
No, I'm actually glad we're starting at 6.
Yes, me too.
Good thinking, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any other business for us this evening? Okay. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Julianne, seconded by Laura. All in favor of adjourning? I see. Yes, I see that as unanimous. We are adjourned exactly 10 o'clock on the nose.
Yes, I think so.
Thank you.